Welcome, dear students. In the current session, we are going to talk about the aims of the grammarians during the 18th century. I hope and expect by the end of this session, you would have some clarity regarding the goals of these grammarians. Well, my dear students, like the linguistic scholarship, during every age or any age has its specific goals and specific concerns and specific areas of interest. Same was the case in the 18th century, and the grammarians of the 18th century had their particular or peculiar goals or aims. Overall, these grammarians followed certain, rules or certain ideas. The main feature of what they followed was a prescriptive tradition of grammar. I hope you know what is the difference between descriptive grammar and prescriptive grammar. As the words themselves suggest, prescriptive from prescribing, prescribe, to tell what to do. So, this perspective of grammar deals with, how language should be. Whereas descriptive grammar describes language, how it is. It just records this is how people speak, this is how people write. It does not say it should be so. So, this is the main difference. I hope this little elaboration would help you. Coming back to the point, these 18th century grammarians prescribed grammar was the tradition that they followed. So, it also meant that they were not considering the usage. How do people actually use it? So, you would find a lot of examples in all the languages where, people do not follow a certain grammatical rule that strictly in their, usage. But these grammarians would consider that incorrect. Now, what was the aim of these grammarians? This comes as a question to us. Well, their main aim was to codify the principles of the language and to reduce it to rules. It was in line, this aim, this ambition was in line with the general, spirit of the 18th century that asked for rules, that demanded for perfection, and that demanded purity by removing all the imperfections. The second aim of these grammarians was to settle disputed points of grammar and of syntax, and to decide cases of divided usage. Any such usage, where common people use it, where the speakers of language use it in more than one ways, to decide which one is right, to give their, verdict on, which one is right. And the third task was to point out the common errors. Again, the word error itself tells that, where they thought that people don't know that this is incorrect, so they would point it out. And all that was supposed to be errors, the aim was to correct all that to improve the language. Actually, all these tasks, all the three of them were being worked upon simultaneously at the same time. During the 18th century, the people with the idea of an academy, who wanted to establish an academy for the improvement and, purification of language, this academy also proposed to systematize the facts of English grammar and draw up rules by which all questions regarding the rules should be viewed and decided. So, it was in the air. Everybody was talking about the same things. My dear students, here on the screen you would see an extract from the dictionary that Johnson published. He says, "When I took the first survey of my undertaking, I found our speech copious without order and energetic without rules." So he is pointing out two flaws. A, that the language doesn't have order. B, that it does not follow the rules. Wherever I turned my view, there was perplexity to be disentangled, And the conclusion that he draws is that wherever he found confusion, perplexity, confusion, that needed to be disentangled, that needed to be sorted out, that needed to be unfolded, to be, to be clarified. And the confusion that needed to be, what he says, regulated for, the purity of language. However, there are certain important factors regarding these grammarians and the work that they did. These grammarians became lawgivers. They would give a rule and they would be very strict about that rule. They would say, this is how it should be spoken, this is how it should be written, this is how the structure of this kind of a sentence should be. Whether people speak like that or not in their daily lives, that was not their concern, and they would actually condemn that. They were not content to record facts. Well, because they believed in prescriptive grammar, they, would prescribe that this is how it should be. They would not describe. They would not record, because for the simple reason, they were not descriptive grammarians. They pronounced judgments. Well, people, in our lives, they speak the way they want to speak and they consider it correct as long as the other people are okay with that. However, these grammarians, they pronounced judgments. They gave their verdict. This is right and this is wrong. And whenever there would be two forms, whenever there would be a divided opinion, they would say this form is right and that form is wrong. So, in proving one option right, they would always say the other option is incorrect. They would always determine the other option as a wrong one. There was no concept that both of the options or more than two options can be correct if they are in usage. In other words, I would say the nature of the work that they did, they abhorred, they hated uncertainty. They disliked uncertainty. And they believed that a choice has to be made. If there are two or more than two choices, one has to be picked up. Once a question had been decided, now once they would decide that this is the correct choice, this is the correct option from the grammatical point of view, they would say that is the only possibility that should be used, and they would condemn all other usage. Here I am quoting some example from Loth, who says, the principal design of a grammar of any language is to teach us to express ourselves. This is the purpose that he points out of the grammar. With propriety in that language, and to enable us to judge of every phrase and form of construction, whether it is right or wrong. So, to judge whether it is right or wrong. The plain way of doing this is to lay down rules. The solution that he gives is rules. To lay down rules and to illustrate them by examples. But besides showing what is right, the matter may be further explained by pointing out what is wrong. So, he takes it one step further, that the grammarians should not only point out what is wrong, rather they should also point out what are the ways, the possible ways of its correction. Now, these were the people who were working with, no special qualifications. They were, they did not have any practical mold of, grammar that they would use. They were just prescribing. The result, of course, was not very good. However, I would say the questions of grammar and usage had become a matter of popular interest during these times, and almost every second person would call himself a grammarian.